Okay, welcome back. Hope everybody enjoyed their lunch break. I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and just stress ate, and it was good, but it was bad. All right, soundring.live. Make a $10 charitable donation, and you're entered to win our massive giveaway raffle. You can click that button right below to donate now if you're watching this from the site. We're going to pick random winners, leave a note of the item you want, and we will give you that prize. About to get back into it. I've got my buddy Matt Mixon coming on next. Let me get him up. Hey, Matt, you there?
Yeah, what's up, man? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you good. What's going on, man?
How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you for coming on this. I know you're traveling right now and had to kind of like find a spot. So I appreciate you taking a second to talk.
It's my pleasure.
For those of you who might not know Matt, he started in Seven Angels and graduated into a videographer now and was responsible for directing the Yesterday Was Everything Misery Signals documentary, which is super powerful and extremely well done. So catch me up, because I don't know too much, admittedly, about your transition from being in a band to getting into film stuff. Like, just talk a little bit about your career from the beginning there.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, I mean, when I was playing in hardcore bands, I was in college at the time. Around the time 7A was starting to tour full time, I quit the band to stay in school, and I went to school for journalism. Started messing around with documentary stuff towards the end of my 5th year in school, and at the time, not really knowing that I wanted to eventually direct kind of more narrative Hollywood style movies. Like a pretty easy transition, so I just started doing that. And then just kind of by accident ended up directing that Misery Signals thing. I just went on tour, guys, and turned out there was some pretty good stories on that tour to be told. So I filmed the thing and we put it out. And now I'm just trying to work in Hollywood, work in movies and TV more on the scripted side.
Awesome. Are you currently writing for anything that you could talk about, or are you is that all like not to be spoken of? I don't want to spill beans on anything.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing I'm writing right now, I shouldn't talk about because I don't want to get in trouble if it came out. But yeah.
Okay, all good. Enough said. I get asked about records all the time and have to not answer. So very cool. So I mean, Yesterday Was Everything was my favorite part about it, was like how you captured real human emotion. I could see that you have an eye and a understanding of the depth of like different emotional characteristics, you know, from people, and it comes across like extremely powerful on that. So I mean, it's fucking awesome. If anyone hasn't seen that, it's available online, and then it's actually coming out on like a physical copy. Is that true?
Yeah, I didn't realize they were doing it, but Misery Signals is pressing physical copies of it, and we have one as one of the giveaway items for this awesome event. So maybe you just bid on it, and it ends up being you end up winning it, and that's the first time you see it. Somebody should try that out.
Very cool.
But yeah, no, otherwise it's on all the like platforms that you can rent, where you can like rent movies.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, I'm sure anyone who's in here who's here to watch you is probably aware of Seven Angels and of Mouse and stuff, but that's like kind of like the defining melodic hardcore record, and you were a part of the early stages of those artists, and then being able to document all that stuff it's awesome that you've been involved with that piece of this music community for so long, because I know those records and that band is important to a lot of people. So it's very excited to talk to you. But you're also extremely active in what's going on in the world right now, which I think is more important. So I've seen you at protests. I've also seen pictures of you being arrested at protests, and I just want to hear what's going on, because you are like boots on the ground dude, and sitting here in the fucking studio talking to people. So we might have different perspectives on things. So catch me up. Like, where were you at like, where have you been going to the protests?
Well, I'm in Austin, Texas right now. I just drove from Austin for a gig, so I'm here right now. But yeah, I live in LA, and yeah, a couple weeks ago, I think like a lot of the rest of the world, I was just pretty glued to Instagram and Twitter and just trying to hear the latest with what was going on and keeping track of everything. And I was kind of settling in for my second or third night of being a professional retweeter. And I was just like, man, what the fuck? Like, it's so strange to have grown up in hardcore. You know, I've been going to shows since I was 14 years old. I'm almost 40. And how many people, you know, involved in direct action and activism, and still having never really participated in it in a meaningful way myself. That's just kind of how it worked out. I don't know. But the other night I was just like, I guess it was just the feeling that everyone else was doing it, and it felt like a good time to catch a wave or what. But we went out and we found a march, and it was fucking the wildest night in LA out of like the 2 weeks in a row that I've marched or protested every night. It was the fucking craziest one. It was the one where like just cops were going ape shit. Everyone was getting smashed with rubber bullets and tear gas. And it was my first time ever experiencing anything like that. Yeah, and then we've just gone out ever since. I mean, LA is fucking nuts because there's just like there's an Instagram that everyone's following that just posts like where stuff is happening. And dude, it's like 5 pages long, and it has 2 columns with like 10 things on each column, or on each column. So there's just like anywhere, Long Beach, Irvine, Burbank, fucking Santa Monica. Like there's just something happening at every time of the day, every single day. So I've just been trying to go out, and I don't really know what else to do. So I'm trying to move the needle just by having my body out there and by screaming and getting loud and making people uncomfortable, and keeping awareness alive.
Sure. I mean, LA's always been like the center of some of these protest movements. I mean, it's always been a hotbed for police brutality. And, you know, I always look to LA to see what reactions are like in times like this, because the people do take proactive measures, I think maybe faster than some other communities. And I mean, those rallies just get like huge, and it always escalates, and it's always a thing. So you were at one of the really more violent ones. And I should correct myself, because I've made the mistake of saying peaceful protests, like in regards to LA a few times, but they're not necessarily peaceful. They're non-violent protests, you know. No one's like happy at these things, you know what I mean? And I don't want to paint the picture that everyone's like, oh yeah, we're all just like hippies and we're here, we want to spread love, and then the tear gas comes in, you know. So to be fair, they're non-violent protests. But what is escalating these protests? Because everyone I've talked to has been on the ground. No one's out there, you know, no one's out there smashing shit and looting and rioting immediately. It's always it seems like it's always in response to violent action towards them. So you were there when some of it broke out. Like what exactly was the catalyst for it to turn violent?
Well, I mean, the first night that we went out, it was like the shit was already had been set off by the time we got there. So I really can't say. But I mean, the next 3 days in a row, I was involved in protests that were, you know, as you say, peaceful, for lack of a better word, going along perfectly fine. And each one of those days, shit got weird as soon as a gazillion cops and National Guard showed up. And since then, then they instituted the curfews, which was nuts, because then they kept announcing like, oh, you know, literally like in LA for a couple of days, you would get a message on your phone that would be like, one day I got it at 3:34 and it was like curfews at 6. And then 2 seconds later, it was like curfews at 5. And then the next day there was one where they announced curfew for 6 p.m. at 6:34 p.m. And those days were nuts, because like a lot of cops were out on the streets, especially in Hollywood, where I went both those times, and downtown. So a lot of stuff was like dispersed pretty quick, but there were like little pockets of things. So you would just kind of run around and try and find a group of people that were doing it, and that get chased away by the cops and to do it some more.
Yeah, it's funny. It's constantly like we haven't really talked about the curfew imposing on here and how that's creating more confusion and chaos. But I see it as a method of instigation, because it gives validity to use a police force to control a situation where it's like, if it's nonviolent and things aren't escalating to a point where people's lives are in danger or significant damage is in danger. These like random and changing curfews. I mean, people have gotten caught in these and assaulted by police officers who like, you know, didn't even know they weren't allowed to be out. Like we don't have there's no really defined set of rules on how you're going to even receive this information about a curfew and what time you're allowed to be out. And I think part of it, it's not helping. It's creating more confusion with the communities who already have enough going on. And now, you know, I see it as instigation tactics more than as, you know, we're trying to minimize violence and damage. And you know,
sure, 100%, man. I mean, it's an excuse for them to put anyone they see in jail if they want to. Yeah, which is exactly what happened to us. Like the second day in a row when the curfews were 5 o'clock, dude, it's summertime. It's light out until like almost 9 p.m. And it's hot as a motherfucker where I live too. So like that, you know, whatever, like there's tons of people who have been stuck inside for 3 months because of COVID who have nothing else to do. And, you know, this movement comes along and we get a chance to have our voices be heard. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, you got to be inside at 5 o'clock. It was just fucking nuts. I mean, so we went out the second night and we were just walking around. We didn't even find a protest that night. I think probably because so many people in the neighborhood that we were walking around in were, you know, observing the curfew. And my girlfriend and I were just on Hollywood Boulevard and fucking cops rolled up in our block, which was like so dumb because it took like 30 of them to get 24 of us processed, and it took like nearly 5 hours. So I was like, yo, this is a victory because there's people elsewhere in town doing more important work, less cops that are fucking with them. So like, go off if that's like how you're gonna fucking do it.
You're the decoy for the actual protest. I kind of enjoy hearing that.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I mean, you know, that was fine with us, whatever. And like, you know, it sucks that like we're gonna have to pay some fucking gigantic ticket in September or whenever our court date is, but like I don't care. Like that was one of the nights too where I was just like, fuck man, I just felt I felt stifled. I felt silence. I felt like I was losing, you know, and I knew that the chances we were going to get arrested were pretty high if we just left the house, you know. It's funny because I live in a fucking hella rich white people ass neighborhood. There's a Blue Bottle Coffee around the corner from my apartment, but like, so like whatever, everyone was like walking to get whatever the fuck they wanted in my neighborhood. And as soon as we went like a little further west, it was just like all bets were off. But that was the night that I went out and I was just like, yo, I want to do something tonight. I don't know what it is, but I was looking for trouble basically because I just felt oppressed by it. It was fucked, you know, like all we can do is go out on the streets and say, hey, this is fucked. And then they say like, no, you can't, you can only do that until 5 o'clock, you know? So yeah, we were asking for it that night.
Yeah. I mean, I know even like, you know, I've obviously been following what some of the charities that we're donating to are doing right now. And I think the ACLU is like making a pretty heavy case that, you know, implementing these curfews and then only enforcing them in certain areas too, like you said, is like it's a violation of your rights. Like, and it still applies to this. And it's like there's no reason to force people to stay indoors if there's nonviolent actions happening and people want to gather and protest peacefully. And you know, it's like all of a sudden all the COVID rules got thrown out the window, and that was fine. Everyone was allowed to protest. And not follow and not, you know, abide to any only non-essential, all non-essential people must be inside in certain cities. But then, so they said like, all right, you can protest. But then they said, wait, no, actually you can't. You got to go inside because of this. And it's like, I don't know, it's very hypocritical. And seeing both sides of it doesn't really add up. I just think it's confused reactions on how to crowd control and handle situations. And the bottom line, it just looks like a police force that's not equipped or prepared to deal with these types of protests and riots that, you know, you'd think after years of this shit that they would have at least some kind of plan on how to de-escalate situations peacefully without firing fucking tear gas and rubber bullets at people that are saying like, hey, our lives matter. So I appreciate that you went out there and, you know, got in the mix of this shit, because it's people like you that need to come back and tell this story that like, yeah, man, they didn't fucking do this in my neighborhood. They did it in this neighborhood instead. And with all this confusion, I didn't know you got a text half an hour after you were supposed to be inside telling you that.
Oh, dude, this is great, man. Shout out to my guys at the Hard Times, because my friend Bill earlier 2 days earlier was like, yo, man, do you want to post for a Hard Times article? It's going to be about a curfew that gets announced a half an hour after it goes into effect. And I was like, oh, yeah, I laughed because it's a fucking funny headline. I said, sure. Like, I went over there, I did the thing, literally that 10 a.m., literally 8 hours later, or 8 hours and 34 minutes later, the fucking Hard Times article happened in real life. We got an announcement 34 minutes after the curfew went into effect. And I was like, fucking, I don't know, I was like 45 minutes away from my car, like 2 hours walk from my house at the time that I got that announcement too. So it's just like, yo.
Man, it's crazy. It's funny how satire becomes reality. And I'm laughing because I don't know how to react. All you can do is fucking laugh. But yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on and sharing some of this stuff because I like to hear from, people who are actually out there. And I think your perspective on this is really important. So thank you again, man. It was very cool. You brought some goodies, so I would like to just show your giveaway real quick, if that's cool with you.
Of course.
So this is kind of from all the boys. We've got a bit
all the boys.
Yeah. So this is a combo of kind of all the Matt and Associates gifts. A Misery Signals Mirrors Test Press, which is insane. I did get a lot of messages about this one. This one was pretty surprising to pop up. Yeah. Like Greg was like, I didn't even know that existed. And I'm like, well, now you know, go bid,
I just realized they got a new record coming out. And when I asked them if they had anything, they were like, sure, do you want a thing from Mirrors? It's like, nah, man, fucking give me your new shit. Look, that's fucked up.
Collectors are going to like this, so it's awesome,
Okay.
So you get the test press, you get the Burning Emperor's 10-inch, which is also limited. Signed copy of the Hard Times book. Thank you for the Hard Times guys.
Shout out, Matt. Yeah.
That was very cool. And when it's released, your DVD, Yesterday Was Everything, which if you haven't seen yet, you can go see online now. I think you can rent it as Amazon still.
Amazon, Google, and Apple. Try not to use Amazon because, man, fuck them. That's the next thing we got to do when this is all over. Is we all got to quit that fucking.
We're gonna keep this going. This is important right now. Obviously, there's other important issues to tackle in the future, and I'm looking forward to do more shit like this. But yeah, support. I don't know, pick your evil corporation and rent this thing, but because it's pretty good. But Matt, dude, is there anything else you wanna just chat about before I gotta let you go?
Yeah, for sure, man. Just real quick, again, I want to say to everyone, there's a lot of us who've grown up with friends who, make it their life to be about this kind of shit, and they're just the righteous among our friend groups. And if you've grown up in punk or hardcore, you've got tons of them. And don't feel like just because you've never gone out there or just because you've never been someone who's involved, that like that's sort of like your brand, that you have to stick to that. Like, it's never too late to get outraged and get involved, man. Like, take it from me. Like, I'd fucking never been on the streets chanting shit until a couple of weeks ago. And we're all just learning a ton in the moment. So, obviously, like, read as much as you can and fucking, but don't be afraid to take action either, or make your voice heard either. Even if you're not the most eloquent or the most knowledgeable, like, who gives a fuck? Say the wrong thing, post the black square, and then be like, shit, my bad. Like, that was actually a whack move. We're going to do something else. Like, don't underestimate your sphere of influence. There's people who are going to listen to you say something else that you heard somebody else say on a podcast or in a fucking somewhere online, just because you're the one who said it, So the more of us who can take action, the better, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's what this whole thing's about, is keeping this conversation going. And Matt, I really appreciate you coming on here. Good luck paying that fucking protest ticket. I hope it's not too bad. And yeah, man, we'll talk soon, dude.
Thanks so much for doing this, Will.
All right, man. I appreciate you.
Peace, brother.
All right. Thank you, Matt. 7 Angels, 7 Plagues. A classic melodic hardcore record, if you haven't heard it. Matt Mixon's giveaway bundle: the Mirrors Test Press, a Burning Empire's limited 10-inch, a signed copy of the Hard Times book, and his soon-to-be-released DVD, Yesterday Was Everything, which documents the Misery Signals' return to the stage, and it's a very good watch. I highly recommend you bid and you put this in as your prize, because it's a very cool prize pack. Soundrink.live, a $10 charitable donation enters you into our giveaway raffle. There's over 100 items. We're going to pick random winners, and if you write what you want in there, we'll send you that if you win. So please go donate. Thank you. And I'll be back in a second with my man, Justin Loudon.